you ever gone home for like Thanksgiving or Christmas and your mom makes you a big dinner and afterwards she asks you, so what did you think? Was it good? And you know that you have to tell her, oh yeah, it was good, Mom. And she's reading your nonverbals and she knows that you're lying. Have you ever wondered how she knows? Well, moms are really good. They can read nonverbals. And I want to tell you where your nonverbals come from and how mom can read them. Nonverbals being your facial expressions, your hand gestures, your posture, where you're standing. Moms know these things. I have a lot of experience with this. I'm very good at misinterpreting my friends' nonverbals. They're telling me something, and I get something completely different. And I also have experience because my mom is amazing at reading my nonverbals, and growing up, I've never been able to lie to her. So nonverbals, mixed up nonverbals hurt relationships. They're no good when you're trying to convey a message to your friends. And we often send wrong messages to our friends, which also hurt relationships. So my main points are going to be where our nonverbal habits come from, whether our nonverbals are submissive or dominant, and how our nonverbals communicate and where they come from God. So, nonverbal habits, according to Robert Hines, the author of Nonverbal Communication, can either be genetic or learned. So genetic nonverbal communications come from our family or blood relatives. It's built into our genes. And they can also be like a universal habit. All of us have these nonverbals. They can be learned. They come from our biological family, like people that we're surrounded with, even if they're not blood or if they are blood. And they also come from the culture around us, like what we're surrounding ourselves with. So I've told you where our nonverbals come from. Now I want to show you how to read whether a person's nonverbals are submissive or dominant. According to Hind and Fernando Prietas, our nonverbals can be our hands or our feet. That's a way you can tell whether they're submissive or dominant. The way a person stands with their feet, if they're planted firmly and they've got a good solid posture, it's very dominant. If a person is pigeon-toed and their feet are kind of together, it's very submissive. They're protecting their body. Same with your arms. If they're folded or crossed or up close to their face, they're naturally protecting themselves and it's very submissive. If they have big open arm gestures, they're very dominant and they're confident in what they're talking about. So now you know where our nonverbals come from and how to read whether they're submissive or dominant. So now I want to talk about what God has to say or why he has us communicate with nonverbals and verbals. So the Bible tells us that we need to speak truth in what we're saying to our friends, and this includes our nonverbals and our verbals. In Matthew 5:37 it says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no, and anything beyond this is evil." So what we're conveying to our friends in our nonverbals doesn't always match what we're saying, and this can be speaking not truth. I think that if we concentrate on making our nonverbals match our verbals, I think we can witness better to people because people in general are really good at reading nonverbals and they know when what you're saying is not what you're doing and acting. Christians communicate because it's our call. In Mark 16:15 it says, "Go and preach the good news." So God calls us to communicate with people and he calls us to speak truth to them. So we need to make sure our nonverbals and our verbals match up. I think when our nonverbals and our verbals match up in fellowship with people, we can really witness to them and be a living example. So my main points, where our nonverbals come from, whether they're genetic or learned, nonverbals being submissive or dominant, and do our nonverbals agree with what God has to say. So nonverbals can really hurt people if they're mixed up, and they hurt relationships, and they send wrong messages. So next time you're at home and your mom's cooked you a good meal and she asks you what you think of it and you know that it was bad, tell her and don't send her a mixed message.